Oops.
What's up, bro?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Cheers, mate. Lattes.
Cheers.
This is not even lattes. We're switching it up.
This is black coffee and
Straight
wisdom.
black.
Yeah. I like black coffee. I don't drink lattes
Straight to
all the
the
time.
dome. Mate, when you said about drinking a coffee before you meditate, that's crazy.
You know,
How can you get into some relaxed state if you're...
I get into a relaxed state, just that I get very creative. It's like my energy keeps going.
The visions
wild.
are stronger.
Yeah. You know, I learned this when I lived in England. I lived in England for 9 months. I worked for TJ Maxx headquarters. And
Where did you live?
fashion buying, men's athletic wear.
Whereabouts, though? Where was that? London?
That was in Watford.
Watford. Okay.
It's a crazy town, bro.
Yeah.
Cold, cold too, man.
What time of year
I was
is
just
this?
looking forward to my cheat meals, Saturdays and Sundays. This is the time where I was just eating salmon and salad Monday through Friday.
Salmon.
Just salmon and salad Monday through Friday. And just Fridays at 5, 6 p.m. I would drop the pen like the Germans do in Germany. Dude, Germans at 5 p.m. on a Friday, they
Done.
drop the pen, it's done. The company can be on fire, it's done, bro, it's over. And then I would go to the supermarket, some chain in the UK, I forgot what it was called. What are the supermarket chains?
Tesco's?
Tesco's, man. I would go to
Legendary
Tesco.
chain.
I would go to Tesco's and I would buy big jar of Nutella, and I would buy all these candies, these Kinder things, Kinder Bueno, all that type of stuff. But I wouldn't start Friday, it was just to prepare. And then Saturday morning, I would wake up super early, and I would
Just
start.
imagine you tucking in before sunrise.
Yeah. Nutella. I would put Nutella on the toast. I would spoon the Nutella. And then I would take a very early train from Watford to London, where everything was happening. And I would typically do a lot of fashion stores and these unique boutique stores like Dover Street Market. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, yeah.
It's very, very hip, bro. Super hype. I think the person's name is Juanya Watanabe. It's a brand. They do Comme des Garçons, the heart. That guy, I think, owns the store, is part owner of the store, him and his wife. So they have all these up-and-coming brands that I really loved. Art comes first. Brands you don't see anywhere else. Gosha Rubchinsky did a collection with Adidas with the Russian writing. I don't know if you've seen that. It was very popular a couple of years ago. So I would go there, just do all the stuff, look at the fashion. It was very expensive stuff, so I wouldn't buy a lot of stuff, only if it was on sale. And then I would walk towards some bakery that I found on Yelp before. And then I would eat croissants there, cookies.
Cool, what a day.
Yeah, dude. And I would go to Said. There was a hot chocolate place. They would just melt.
Oh, this is the place you told me about when I was
It's
there
closed
last.
now, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy, dude. And I would do that and then go to the next store, next store. Just walk around, do that. Boom, 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 boom. And that was the best. That was the best part, man. And how did we talk about?
Was that one of your
things?
first roles then, working for TJ Maxx?
Um,
TK Maxx over in the UK, right?
Yes, it was one of. It was not the first one. I was doing. So this was after my MBA. Before my MBA, I was doing business development for a logistics company in Frankfurt. Actually, my friend owns that company, and so I was doing that. Then I did my master's. Then I did that, and then I was like, man, I want to leave the UK. It's too cold, too gray. And I lived in the US before that for my master's, but my visa
California.
had ended in Vegas. I got my MBA at UNLV. So I came to UNLV, did my MBA 2 years, and then went back because my status ended. German citizens, I couldn't stay. And then I didn't want to stay in Germany, man. It seemed like I'm going back to before I made any progress. That's how it seemed like when I went back. And I was like, okay, I have to get out of here. I can't go back to the US. So I applied for jobs in Dubai, and in the UK I got an offer in Dubai, and I got an offer for TJ Maxx. Like, you know what? I like fashion. Let's go there. And I went there, and honestly, people were super cool, super, super cool. And that's where I learned about the nap. They called it Napresso.
Napresso?
Napresso. Espresso and a nap combined. So you drink the espresso.
What, you saying the British made this
Nancy.
up?
Nancy from England did that. Told me that.
Who's Nancy?
Nancy's the girl I worked with.
Okay, so she
red-haired girl.
made this up?
No, she told me that that's a thing for you guys. A
I've
Napresso.
never heard of that.
Really?
Maybe it is, I don't know. Maybe
I think she was from Ireland, and she came to England to work there as well. But she
Napresso.
said the people in the UK do Nespressos. So you drink the espresso right before you go to nap. But you have to do it right before. Otherwise, you can't sleep. So essentially, you lay in bed and you close your eyes. Falsy. The longer you wait to fall asleep, the higher the chance you don't fall asleep.
And if you do fall asleep, then you just have vivid dreams?
Bro, you fall asleep. If you manage to fall asleep and you wake up, it seems like you slept for 8 hours straight. It's crazy.
Wow. I need to
Yeah,
try
you
this
come
then.
out of it and you're like, dude, this is wild. But now I can't even nap without a espresso. I just can't. I have problems napping. So if I drink an espresso now, it's going to be...
Are you a napper?
I used to be, but I can't. I can't nap anymore.
Why? Because of too much coffee?
Well, it started when I had these long COVID reactions, these twitches and stuff. I had a lot of muscle twitches in 2021, and brain zaps and crazy physical sensations where I thought I have something in my brain. I got MRIs done and they did all kinds of labs. And they thought they at least, that's a theory up until now, is long COVID related, because they did an IgG and an IgM COVID antibody test, and both of them were positive. And I guess the IgM is the one that shows recent infection. So that only shows up until I think 6 or 7 weeks after you've contracted COVID. And that was still positive when we got tested. So the theory was you had COVID in your system even though you didn't know it. And that's causing all these neurological symptoms. And then since then, bro, I wasn't able to nap. So I wasn't able to sleep the first few months because I had these internal tremors. So imagine you want to fall asleep, it pulls you out of it.
Like you, when you're
Almost
falling
a zap.
asleep and you hit the curb or something. And
Something like that. Almost like someone is electrocuting you on the inside. You know
wild.
that situation when you try to fall asleep sometimes and you jolt out
Yeah.
of it right before that. But I had that continuously. So there's something up with the central nervous system. And then since then I can sleep now normally. But the naps, unless it's jet lag nap, that is when I'm very tired, naps don't work. So I don't nap. I meditate now because I know that napping is difficult. Or I do the thing that what is it called?
non-sleep deep rest.
Yes, NSDR.
I knew you were going to say that, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just listening to a Huberman podcast where he was talking about the importance of REM sleep and that a lot of our healing is done during that time. And that if we are not getting enough REM sleep, we tend to over-catastrophize things in the day. Like we will be more sensitive to mood changes. Things will bother us more. And that's definitely something that I've experienced.
Yeah.
Super interesting when it comes to rapid eye movement, and he was making links between REM sleep and what was that therapy I was talking to you about? The
eye movement therapy.
Yeah,
It's called
ED something.
ED something. Yeah.
Eye desensitizing something.
Yeah.
Where that's like a type of therapy that you go to in order to reprocess deep-rooted trauma.
Yep. Exactly.
Based on specific eye movements as you're recalling the event, because apparently that reframes it in your mind or allows you to kind of, I guess what it is finding what the traumatic, finding what it is, but you're like going through it again, reliving it, but in a safe environment so that you can then distance the fear response that's attached to it.
Correct.
And he was also talking about how even walking, you can, like when you're walking, your eyes are naturally spatially aware. There's little movements left and right.
Yeah.
So even walking and then recounting a particular event in your life can help you process it better, rather than staying sedentary and letting it kind of loop on in your mind. I thought that was super interesting.
Super interesting, yeah.
He's like, just get out and walk, and then you'll be able to kind of help your brain kind of move through things.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know from his podcast as well that there's a technique that he described where in order to reduce anxiety, you shift from a narrow eye focus to a landscape focus far away. So right now I'm looking at you, right? So it's a very narrow, very close to my eyes focus. So if I wanted to, throughout the day, let's say, reduce my anxiety, if I feel a bit stressed or anxious, I could literally just look out into the horizon and then broaden my view into a landscape mode. And that reduces your anxiety as well if you hold it there for some time. And I think evolutionarily, it kind of makes sense, right? If you think about having something close to you, evolutionarily, it probably posits some type of threat. Like if you have something coming close to you, or you have to run away from something, it means proximity. And maybe looking far away, it's almost like, oh, everything is safe. There's nothing close to me, so I can relax. But in any case, like if you do this, you shift from this to this, it does reduce anxiety. It actually works.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And also to kind of see the bigger picture. To be poetic. That kind of, that rings true.
Yeah.
My brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about these things, about how to kind of deal with feelings that are arising in you and coping through times which are not necessarily going the way that you think that they, or the way that you thought that they were, because inevitably there will be certain things which crop up that you have to deal with at certain times, and you got to kind of figure out ways around them or over them or through them.
So that's the biggest challenge in life, right? It's, you know what you have to do, and you know you have to shift perspective, but that overwhelming sense of emotion, it's almost trumping everything that you can possibly think of. It's almost like the other areas of your brain are inferior to that emotional response. What do you do then? It's easy when things
take a deep breath to start with. Yeah. You kind of have to remind yourself that whatever it is that you're going through, you know, this too shall pass, and that too, whatever it is, it's a kind of, I mean, for me, I find meditation, breathing, talking about it. You know, we were chatting about journaling in previous episode, but honestly, just not feeling like you have to deal with it on your own. Even just the process of vocalizing it can help you feel like you're not alone. It's not you against the world.
Yeah.
And also you can get like opinions or advice or help or support or encouragement from other people in those kind of situations too. So I would say to surround yourself with people that are, it's not necessarily positive thinkers, but people that are not doom seeker type people that will kind of help you see, think about it like this, that are considerate and compassionate.
Yeah.
To help you broaden your view on things. Again, the kind of from there to there, and even just having a conversation sometimes can help you just be like, you know what, it's going to be okay. You know, try and take a step back from it. Realize that things sometimes take time, and everything is meant for you. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, and these things are there for a reason. And you'll look back and laugh at it at some point, but in the thick of the moment, sometimes that can be difficult to kind of grasp.
And it's difficult to grasp because the first thing that happens is your rational mind kicks in and tries to look for why and for solutions. That's the first thing that happens. And what can I do, right? And it's very difficult to shut that part of your brain off and realize that it's a necessary piece of the puzzle to move towards the state that you desire. Because your rational mind inherently is limited. You can only make sense of things to a certain degree. It's almost like if you walk into a forest and there's a path that you had mapped out to reach that part of the forest, and then there's a couple of trees that fell down in front of you, so you can't go that path. The first thing is like, why? How do I get above the hurdle? But maybe you just have to now make a left. But that's because if you zoom out, there is a better and nicer path that shows you nicer trees and nicer areas. and you get to the end more safely. But it's impossible for you to understand because you only see what's in front of you. It's almost like the heart would be, or the infinite mind would be zooming out and getting the bird's eye.
Yeah. But you're
yeah.
just there, and you can only see in front of you the woods. It's interesting that you even give it a kind of analogy based on finding a path through something, because that resonates. I actually downloaded the map of Las Vegas today, the offline map, so that when my phone's not in service, I can still know where I need to go on my GPS or whatever.
Preparing for that catastrophe, bro.
Dude, I'm prepared. Thanks very much, Apple. But
don't walk into piranhas, bro.
Definitely not. They're all quads. What a name for a place! It's all quads.
My brother, man. You walk in there, you'll be like,
yeah,
you'll be
they'd definitely be looking
gift,
at your
bro.
quads in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like downloading this map made me think, like when you were just saying that, if you're stuck in the woods, and you've set your path and you don't have access to a phone, let's say, so you've got the one pathway through and you can't figure out where else to go. But if someone was above you or in a helicopter or a plane and able to see, there's another route here, there's another route there, you could go, this way. Mm-hmm. But you aren't able to see that because you're on the ground level.
Yeah.
So almost trying to stay open-minded to the fact that there are things and forces at work that can help you through things if you stay open to that.
Stay open.
Stay receptive to it. Don't feel like you have all the answers.
Yep.
And that's a humbling way to kind of think about things, and it's again grounding. So it feels grounding to think about issues in that way or challenges.
It almost gives it also a play-like character.
Yeah, it's part of the adventure. This is here's something that you've got to figure out. The path is never going to be that easy. Like you were saying before we started recording, when you're on a trajectory, or you feel that you're leveling up somehow, the universe will balance that out again. Mm-hmm. But that's also part of the challenge. Like if you're playing a computer game and you get to the end of the level, there's a final boss. Like that's not going to be easier than the rest of the level. That's going to, in order to get to the next level.
I like that.
You got to get past the hardest part of it.
Yeah. That's absolutely true.
And that's life.
That's life, man. And that's why I think the way you framed it, it makes perfect sense. And there's the Bible verse that says you have to become children to enter the kingdom of heaven. What does it mean to be a child? It means to be open, receptive, and it means to be playful. Why? Because a lot of times you have to be. Your rational mind cannot make sense of things, and that's where your faith needs to kick in. That's when it needs to take over. When nothing makes sense to you, and you don't exactly know where to go, and just some external event manifests itself that seems to be a hurdle along the path, but it's what it really is. It's a necessary piece of the puzzle for you to get there. You just don't see it. So having the faith in that seems to be, what allows you to move forward. And that's the challenge, right? Independent of that is visible in front of you, holding on and remaining loyal to that faith. That situation this is exactly the situation.
That's the test of faith.
That's the test of faith, exactly.
I mean, having faith when things are going smoothly is easy. It's when you get tested that shows you what your faith is and how much that means to you and how it can carry you through.
Yeah.
One of my other friends used to say, hope is the last to die. But, you're going to be one or the other. You're either going to be like, oh, it's all falling apart, conspiracy theories, this, that, and the other. Like, the world is against me. Or you're going to be like, no, this is the time when I need to put on the armor. This is the time when I need to kind of step up to the plate and move on through it.
Yeah. And, you'll have the challenge is always leaning into that faith, and yet having those small voices of doubt that are like, yeah, but what if not? What if not? What if you just trying to frame this and make yourself feel a certain way? The more you can silence those doubts, the more you found your faith, I think the more you can just fully put your eggs into that basket with very little or no doubts. And that's where things tend to work out. So I think you've put yourself in a position where you can deal with things like this. You've essentially prepared yourself for situations like that.
Yeah, and to take radical responsibility of it, I've also created those situations. And
That is true.
I would also say I've created them in order that I can prove to myself that I can get past them.
At a subconscious level, you created them.
Yeah. So if I take full responsibility of my path being set for me, my plan is God's plan,
Yeah.
and God is one with me, within me, always with me, then I would know, that this is not something that the me as in Mark wants to be like, this is tough, what am I going to do now? But then there's the other part of me which is like, you chose this is the reason. Now you need to prove to yourself that you can get past whatever the thing is. That's how I see it.
That's the right way to see it, bro.
Even if it feels like, but that's the purpose of it. That's why we create these kind of situations, in order that we can transcend them.
I guess so, yeah, at a subconscious level. And I think you'll always have that battle between your rational brain and your heart and your faith. It's like your faith, you have that deep-rooted feeling that everything's going to be fine. But then there's always the mind coming in and trying to make a logical analysis. Why did this happen? Where do I go now?
But that's past, isn't it? That's based on experience from before.
Exactly.
So I bang on about this all the time, about being in the present moment, because it's all that there is. There's the past, which has already happened, which is then just a memory. And then there's your predictions of the future. The brain's in both of those places. Like that is the beauty of having the dualistic existence, that we have the ability to kind of flick between the two, but all that we ever really have is the right now.
Yes, absolutely. And I also think that any issue that you have, it's an issue because of the way you perceive it. The event in itself is just an event, but you give it value, and it seems to be like the way you feel about it, positive or negative, is based on whether it aligns with your desire, with your end state, and with your goals, or whether it stands in the way. So if it stands in the way, you're going to label it as negative. And then I think you can ask yourself, how would the accomplishment of that goal make me feel? Because the event that you're going for, it stands for something emotionally, whether it's peace, whether it's love, whether it's abundance, whether it's respect, whatever that event is that you desired. What would you feel if you accomplish that? Now you have an obstacle in the way. So really the obstacle is in the way of you feeling that thing that the event would bring, with that desire would bring with itself. So I think part of calming your mind in those situations is being very conscious about how you would feel if that desire would manifest itself, and leaning into that feeling right now when that obstacle is in front of you that technically prevents you to feel that thing you wanted to feel, because the goal didn't manifest itself. And one practical thing for me is always that something that you want to feel, that you attach to a goal, and it's always subconscious. You don't really know that you want that job because it's going to make you feel accomplished and respected. You just know you want the job. You don't even think about the feeling it brings with it. But everything we want to accomplish is based on a feeling. Everything we're chasing is feeling. If you buy this top, yeah, you find the top nice, but it's the feeling that you get wearing it. Oh, I feel pretty. I feel beautiful. I feel like people look at me. I get attention. We're going for the feeling. So when you realize that, you can actually take the feeling and you can apply it to your current scenario and do certain things that evoke that feeling. If the desire you have is, or if the desire you have is, let's say, that job that brings you money and peace, it brings you mental safety, you can do certain tasks right now that bring you a certain level of mental safety. You could go out for a walk. You could go meditate. You could do whatever it is that evokes that feeling within you right now. That's going to fill that cup of the feeling that you chase, and it's going to make the problem in front of you slightly smaller. And that's something that has worked for me, like getting through what is it, why do I want that goal, what feeling does it bring with it, and now let me bring that feeling to my present state by doing the things that lean into that feeling.
Like fitness, like walking, like boxing.
Whatever it might be. Maybe like something brings me the feeling of love, so I can be around people and friends that give me that level of love. Maybe it's that goal brings me admiration, so I really want that goal because I want to be admired. Then I can do certain things that make me feel admired, whatever that may be.
Is it good to be searching out the feeling of admiration? Is that not placing your feeling of worthiness outside of you? I'll pick up on that one specifically because
I brought it up as an example because I feel like a lot of things that we're chasing, subconsciously we're seeking that attention, that admiration from other people, especially things that are related to wealth and social status. If you act more out of the ego, then you really very much define yourself based on externalities, some things that people can see. So it's more about that attention. It's different when you act from a place of, I feel, spiritual development, where you see financial success as a byproduct of your spiritual development. Then the focus is on something else and something arises as a byproduct. But I feel like if you do it purely based on seeking admiration, yes, you are trying to fill a hole, and you have to be honest with yourself about what that hole is. I think in itself there is nothing wrong with being admired, as long as you admire yourself first.
Right.
Then the That's admiration you get, you see it. It obviously feels good if someone is telling you, "Oh, you're smart," or you do so well, you're so good at what you do, or you're good looking, or you're charming, whatever that is people tell you, right? Those are things that will always make you feel good to a certain extent, but those should not be the things that fully define you.
Mm-hmm.
Your confidence, if real confidence to me is the knowledge and the conviction of being able to transcend whatever hardship it is that life throws at me. That's a level of confidence that's invisible. You hold that within, and it allows you to navigate through life thinking you have an armor, feeling like you have an armor around you. Now, everything that comes on top of that, people giving you compliments, those feel good, but those are not the components that define you as a person.
Yeah, that's not your character.
That's not your character.
Yeah, that's just traits.
Yeah. So admiration can be it's nothing. It's whatever it means to you. You know, you have to be honest with yourself. Like, is that really all I'm chasing? Is that something that comes as a byproduct of me fulfilling my soul? Then it's a great thing. So in any case, I feel like knowing why you're going after your desires and what feelings these desires evoke, they give you a lot of insight about what you're lacking in terms of feeling and why you're lacking that. And maybe you can approach it essentially from the end.
It brings me back to the word that's on my hat, even though it's back to front. But that's, I guess, anything that we are searching for outside of ourselves cheesy to say, but is within us, right? Like the love that we seek elsewhere, outside, is essentially coming from within us. Like we are made up of the stuff, and you only will ever really be able to give love out in the grandest sense of the word once you've given it to yourself first.
Yeah.
And that's like the filling your cup up first kind of thing. And my coach would say, whenever I think like that, to imagine myself on an airplane, and when the masks come down, if you were, in trouble, you'd always put your mask on first before you put someone else on. They tell you that, don't they?
Yeah.
And like, well, there's reason to that, because you're not going to be able to help somebody if you can't breathe.
Right.
You're not going to be able to provide you're not going to take care of yourself first. And that's not like a selfish thing to say.
Yeah.
That's the smart thing to do. Like, look after yourself.
Yeah.
So that you have the capacity to help the people that are really in need.
I was thinking about that a lot, because we believe that our internal, you and I, and a lot of our friends, we believe that our internal state dictates the physical world. So we are internally causing that which manifests on the outside. That's what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do not believe that consciousness creates reality, then you're stuck with the action realm. Then you have to do things. Then you believe in doing. Otherwise, you don't believe in anything. So for us, a lot of the focus is internally. Let me be that version that I want to see on the outside. But I feel like for a lot of people where this doesn't make sense, their strategy could be based on action. So if you can't really feel that love, if you can't find that within, or whatever that feeling is that you're wanting to create, you can still act it out. So you could act out love before you feel it on the inside. You could go donate, you could go help, you could go support someone, you could be a listening ear to someone, right? Mm-hmm. So you can do that. So I think to some extent it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
You can put yourself together from within, and you should. I also think, I know that that's the priority, because for you to be the best version, to be the light to other people, you need to ignite yourself first. And at the same time, you can participate in actions that further strengthen that further enhance that which you're trying to create within. So you proactively work putting yourself together mentally, and at the same time you act out the things that you're feeding yourself on the inside. And it seems to be like that dual interplay is the most beneficial.
That leads me to the triple interplay of mind, body, spirit. So early in life, I mean, I don't know, when do you think that you really become aware as a kid? Like 5 years old or something? Like when are you actually like, oh. My earliest memories are around like, I don't know if I can even attach an age to that. I think
difficult.
I think it was 5, but I mean, could have been earlier, could have been later. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm basing that on like pictures and stuff that I've been shown again by my parents. Mm-hmm. At that point, everything is just play and exciting, and you're curious, and it's an adventure to kind of figure stuff out. Then as you go through school, you kind of begin to integrate your mind into things and go, oh, okay, I can learn things and then reapply them in the day-to-day life. And then you get to a point where you're a little bit older and then in comes the spiritual realm, and then you are like, oh, okay, these are all interconnected. They're all part of the same thing. It's just placing energy or intention into these different areas, but they're all interwoven. Everything's interwoven. Mm-hmm. In this room, outside of this room, beyond the equipment that we're talking into, the world, the universe. I mean, it's the whole thing. Our experience of it, although we talk about the man with the 5 senses, we can take it to three: mind, body, spirit. Like, and we've had discussions before as well, where you see across psychology and religious, spiritual, whatever it is, the three seems to be apparent in all of them, even in time. Like we were just talking about it, past, present, future. Like there's something about that number three that is apparent throughout all of these things: Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It's there.
In your mind, is there a hierarchy between these 3 points for you, or are they coexisting at the same level?
That's a tricky one to answer. I think it's. I would like to say it's even. It's different realms. It's not. It's not like to be like it's 33% this, 33% that. I don't think that only works because that's the way that we understand things in terms of a whole. I think that the energy in the things can shifts depending on where it needs to be. You know, a planet, for example, is a solid mass, and then space itself is infinite as far as we're aware. But there's less particles in space than there is in the mass of a planet. Well, not totally, but I'm leaning towards there. So yeah, I don't know. Interesting question.
I always feel like, so for me, it was the other way around, and then it came the other way. So what seems to be happening is that for me, the mind and the body are kind of always in sync, and sometimes they're both in sync with the spirit, and sometimes these two are not. I feel like the things that make rational sense to me, I tend to act out. And ideally, spirit, mind, and body are in sync. So the way I feel, my intuition, my gut signals something. My mind is like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then my body acts that out. This is when they're in sync. That's when I feel most harmonious and have the least dissonance.
I agree with that.
So the biggest challenge is when your intuition is telling you one thing, like you shouldn't be doing that, but your mind is finding rational explanations and kind of like making logical sense of why you should, and then you act it out. And almost always when I do it, I realize that I shouldn't have.
Yeah, well, this is like, we've all done things that we regret after the fact. And we all know, I think, as you're saying, intuitively, what is meant for us, and I know it's a relative word, but what's right for us as well. We know what that is, and I think when we act in coherence with what we believe to be true, and we don't talk ourselves in or out of the certain thing, when that feels aligned with that, I think that the spirit side of things, whatever that means for whoever is placing a meaning on it, matches it, mirrors it, rewards it, etc.
How do we know, though, what's right for us?
I think we know when we are quiet, honestly, when we sit with it and we actually be honest with ourselves. Yeah, I think everybody knows, everybody deep down has that sense of knowing what they should and shouldn't do. Like, you don't need to be taught that. You don't need to be told it. You don't need to have commandments or lessons for it. It's the difference between knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking that is I think you kind of pointing towards intuitively we know what we should be doing, but oftentimes we find a bunch of excuses to not do it. And what we actually need or what we should be doing is pretty much tied to a deeper sense of intuition and meaning. And I feel like a lot of times your intuition can be very tainted. You could have a lot of desires stacked on top of your intuition that serve your smaller self at the expense of the higher self, because I feel like a lot of times what we feel like we should be doing is more of a want rather than a need, more of a short-term gratification than a deeper purpose. And to some extent, you need to sit with yourself to really be clear about what it is that serves you and your deeper purpose, and what is just there to distract you from it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So our intuition could be something like, you know what, I know I shouldn't be going out this weekend, and I shouldn't be getting drunk, and I shouldn't be eating all these cheat meals afterwards, and I shouldn't be getting with all these guys and girls when I'm drunk, and and then I probably regret it for 2 or 3 days after. But your rational mind's going to be like, yeah, but it's not going to be like this forever. You just went through a breakup. Job is a little tough. You don't really like it. You're currently working on establishing a career. That's good. But for now, you can do this because it's good to take your mind off of things every now and then. And every now and then, actually, that's not a problem. The problem is if you can't get a grip on it and you keep continuing lying to yourself about it. So balance is then? It's a balance, right? But I know, and you know, a lot of people that continuously twist reality to accommodate these actions, knowing that it's not serving them in the long run. And that's because they try to avoid that introspection and that clarity, right? So it almost seems like the less deep purpose you have going on in your life, and that's independent of financial wealth or financial success. You can have all of that and absolutely no purpose. So when I say purpose, it's having good relationships with family, having a loving partner, having a career that fulfills you, having some type of spiritual connection, having some hobbies, being in good mental health, being in good physical health. The less you have of that, it seems like the easier for you it is to justify these hedonistic and short-term gratifications, those types of behaviors like drinking, going out, whatnot, because you derive a much greater escape through doing that than the pain that looms above you when you do these actions and not being able to go after your deeper purpose in life. But when that's not established, this is fairly easy to justify.
This makes me think of, it actually sends me back to what you were just talking about with the hierarchy, where I almost want to revise what I was saying. I think it's important to have a father figure in your life. It can be your dad. It can be a Jordan Peterson type person.
That it was for me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Or it can be our Heavenly Father. Like it's about understanding that role of what the father provides to, in our case, a young man, but in a grander sense, what the father represents generally. If we're reigniting the children within us, the inner child, we're healing, reparenting our inner child throughout the course of our life.
Yeah.
Having a communication with a father figure, whether that be a mentor, it could be, even in the hero's journey or in Lord of the Rings or whatever, he finds Gandalf. Like, again, the teacher will be there when the student is ready.
Yeah.
And it's always that relationship to that figure in your life, and your willingness to listen to that voice.
Yeah.
That helps you through those kind of things.
Yeah.
That gives you a sense of it's going to be okay. But you need, and honestly, those types of figures often give you the tough love that you need to hear when it's hard. But it's, sometimes when we act irresponsibly or childishly, to put a label on it, that's the voice that we need to hear. So maybe there is 34%, 33, 32 or something like that.
I think that's brilliant. I think the father figure, what it actually stands for is values.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that you were saying, the hero's journey, and a lot of religious scripture, it seems to be truth. It seems to be courage, and it seems to be truth. They kind of go hand in hand. Because in order for you to be honest with yourself, you have to be courageous. It's probably the most difficult thing to do is turn within and admit everything that you are and everything that you believe to be true, especially the things that hold you back in life. Because the moment you do that, you're opening up a box that makes you responsible for your outcomes. You realize when you do that, you can't really hide behind the curtain anymore. Now you're the one that needs to point the finger to yourself and realize, well, these are the things that hold me back, and you have to be courageous for that, right? And but I think the less willing you are to do that, the more you are going to seek escape and short-term gratification.
Something
because
that
at least it makes
that
you
can
feel
numb
something
the thing in the time, or
yeah.
take your mind off of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, that's your mind rationalizing through
Right.
it.
Well, there's a very interesting study by Leon Festinger. He's a sociologist from 1957. And the study was, he gave participants a very boring task. So they had to do some mundane task. And then he paid the participants to tell other people that this was a very interesting task. So you do a boring task, and then I pay you, and then you go tell people, oh, that was a great task. And he found something very interesting, which was the less the people were being paid to lie, the more they were rationalizing their lie.
Explain what you mean by that. Rationalizing the lie.
So the less they were being paid to lie to other people about how interesting the task was, the more they were making up arguments and rationalizing the arguments in their head to make the lie seem true. So the more I would get into, hey, it's actually a great task because of this. You were justifying and rationalizing the lie. The less I was paying you.
Why is that then?
Well, that's very. I think it's interesting because I was thinking about it every time I'm trying to rationalize something that goes against my intuition, and it seems to me like the less purpose and meaning I can find in the outcome, the more I am trying to rationalize and justify the lie within myself in order to convince me to do it.
So the less purpose, the more you bullshit yourself.
Correct. So essentially, the less I believe that, let's say, drinking and going out is giving me any sense of deeper meaning, the more I am trying to justify and rationalize in my head to make up for my intuition that is telling me otherwise.
Right. It's not that big of a deal, Yeah, it's fine.
Exactly.
Just this weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So we need to find more purpose in order to, Where do we go from here, brother boy?
We'll just continue doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Because we made it so.
That's right. And you'll realize that everything that you always talk to me about, that this here is nothing else but the temporary realm, the illusion. and that which you hold within ultimately is going to supersede everything that is currently in your present state.
Yeah. That's the whole point of the leveling up, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you've got to welcome these kind of challenges as well. I remember reading in one of my books, the one that's by Stephen, I've forgotten his second name, Pressfield. He talks about the war of art.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a writer,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got a book which every single day is a new thing that he talks
The
about.
Art of War or War of Art?
War of art.
Okay.
And he talks about resistance. And he says the bigger the dream, the bigger the resistance. They balance each other out.
Mm-hmm. The bigger the dream, the bigger the resistance,
Yeah.
because it seems so far-fetched and so
Yeah.
far away from you.
Of course.
So your rational mind is resisting it
Yeah.
because it's trying to protect you. It's like, oh,
If we're
unknown territory.
We're in constant communication with the infinite. We are the infinite. We're eternal. So if in that framework, the dream is on one side of it, the resistance is on the other. You can't have the big dream without the big resistance to go with it. That is the rational mind trying to make sense of, well, you know, if you want to be a movie star, then it's going to take this. If you want to be a rocket, if you want to be an astronaut,
all the explanations of why it's not possible.
Yeah, of course. Like that's
Right.
going to mean you've got to do this and then that and then this.
Well, but if you think about it, right, also it that resistance creates a certain level of value for that goal. If everything for you would be readily accessible and easy to achieve, it would also be seeming like it's less value. So I think God wants to experience himself through that resistance and through that loyalty to the unseen, because that interplay really gives life, I feel like it's joy to some extent. And then also the dream, I think when you conceptualize what's real as that which you imagine, the dream in itself becomes very real. It's not the traditional definition of a dream or an imagination. Once you flip it on its head and you say, well, the physical plane is actually the illusion. The reality is where my consciousness is going. So if I'm in my dream and consciousness, that's real, because that's where my attention is. And if I can hold my attention there, the physical plane will follow and crystallize that dream. I think the more you think like that, the less resistance you'll have, which essentially means the more faith you have in God, the less resistance you have. And you can replace God with consciousness, with imagination, with the bearded man in the sky, with whoever, whatever energy you believe in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Because it says in the 4 agreements, we're dreaming 24/7. This is just the lucid part of the dream.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to sleep, and then there's the sleeping REM dream. But it's all a dream. It's all being created in that moment. You do have the capacity to direct it and to perceive it the way that you choose. It's about kind of taking control of that, despite even though sometimes it can feel like a bit of a nightmare. But that's the balance of it all. It has to be that way.
So it's about being aware and being conscious of whatever the present moment is giving you, and then shifting into a perspective that makes sense and interprets the event in a manner that's coherent and aligned with your desired end state.
What is your desired end state?
There's
Peace?
several of them. Yeah. I think ultimately those are feeling states, all of them. It's peace, it's love, it's joy, it's self-respect.
I think if you ask most people, that they're going to come up with similar answers to that. It'd be interesting to see if there is a study that even has that.
It's probably love. I think most of these studies, when they interview older people, Like what was your life about, or what is it really that?
On the deathbed or something.
Yeah,
like
it's always love, man. It's always love. It seems to be love. And I think what we're doing is we're constructing our physical environment as well as our goals in a way that subconsciously, or that we believe subconsciously, is going to lead us to those feelings, not knowing that a lot of times that's not the case, because what we want and what we need a lot of times are misaligned. And when we follow what we want, we think it's going to get us to that feeling state, and then a lot of times it doesn't, because what we need was something else. And I think that's where intuition versus rationalization kicks in. A lot of times the rational mind goes after what it wants, but your intuition seems to be more tied towards what you need. But you just can't grasp consciously yet why that is. So you go against it a lot of times.
How can you distinguish what is the right voice to listen to then, if you're expert at talking, negotiating with yourself? If your mind is saying,
if you've done that well enough,
if you've done that enough times, and you've managed to convince yourself into or out of things, how are you supposed to distinguish whether that's the voice of your higher self or God or whatever, or whether it's you bullshitting yourself through whatever it is?
That's what Jordan Peterson always talks about, man. You have to burn that dead wood. That's always what he says. You have to be as introspective as possible and as brutally honest with yourself as possible, which again predetermines courage. You have to be courageous to do that. And I think one way to become more courageous is through physical hardship, or just breaking down your mental patterns to the next conquerable piece. If you're afraid of something deeply within, maybe you can face a smaller fear first, and then work yourself up to that. But ultimately what you're saying is,
do something that scares you.
You want to calibrate your system again. You need to clean the system. You need to freaking scan.
You do a smog test.
Smog test. Clean the virus,
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you have to just sit with yourself. There is no shortcut to that. For a lot of people, one path towards that is finding a higher power, finding God. For some people, it's practical application of tools, facing your fears, physical hardship, or a combination of both. But, Jordan Peterson says when you do that, this process is so scary to a lot of people, because you may very well realize that over 90% of yourself is a constructed lie. It's just deadwood, and you need to burn that off. And maybe you're just left with 5% or less. And who you believed you are is actually absolutely not the case. And you start building yourself up again. That's a crazy, difficult process. So it's absolutely understandable why people just say, you know what, screw this. I'm going to get drunk, bro.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, just smash a couple of cheeseburgers and have some ice cream.
Yeah, that only dulls it for a day though, and then you're hurting even more the next day to try and figure out the same thing that you could have done the day before. So it's always trying to take immediate responsibility for whatever the thing is.
Well, it's what you're doing is you are making yourself small. You're not tapping into your potential. You're using the shortcut that you believe is easy, but ultimately this is the way pricier decision. And you're so...
Because it robs you of a day of your life.
Well, more than that. I think it's more than that. Yes, on a practical level, that's it. But on a soul level, it hinders you from becoming the person that you should be becoming. Because by doing those things, actually what you're going to do is fulfill your potential. You're going to tap into parts of yourself you didn't even know existed. You're gonna,
all the while building up your willpower, your discipline, et cetera,
by doing
et cetera.
so. Yeah, that's the means of doing it.
Yeah,
you're gonna build
self-esteem, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and that self-esteem is then also going to catalyze, maybe starting the business you always wanted to start, or finding that partner you always wanted to find. Now you're operating at a different frequency. Now you're gonna attract different people, gonna attract different business partners, gonna attract different friends. And all of that means you're going to attract different events, and you're going to attract a different physical world. Your world is going to be literally different as a result of you turning inwards and doing the things that you know are difficult but necessary. So I think there's no shortcut to getting back your intuitive decision making and making that default mode in comparison to that mode you've created that just allows you to do things quickly and easily and gratify you on a short-term level.
Yeah. And that's, again, the responsibility part of, again, being more, when you're in those states, you're able to be more responsive rather than reactive. So that whatever the thing that comes up is, you're kind of prepared, you have the tools in order to deal with it.
That's so true. And that's even true scientifically. So the more you expose yourself to fears, the more your actual fear response in the amygdala is down-regulated. And the more your emotional balance system from the prefrontal cortex takes over, meaning that you're not going to react through the fear response immediately. You're not going to be reactive when physical events take place, but you're going to be much better able to regulate your emotional response to the event, which means you're going to become more conscious of what's going on.
And it all comes back to being as aware as you possibly can be.
Exactly.
In any given situation.
Especially in the difficult situations. Especially when life hits you in a way where you're blindsided, you know? It's freaking hit right from the side, you know? Tackled. Yeah. And then it's the usual response is like, oh my God, you go into survival instinct. But I think the more you've done that and the more you've exposed yourself to your fears and the more you've processed that and worked on yourself and leveled up when it comes to that, the more courageous you became, the more you've trained yourself in technical terms, your brain, to react in a more balanced manner to these situations. And then you can, you know, take a bird's eye and frame it differently. And that's really all that life is, right? It's like things happen, but in itself they have no meaning. So what meaning do you assign to it? Seems to be like that the summary of the meanings that you assign to events kind of dictate where you go in life.
Yeah, and we always assign meaning after the event.
Right.
This, like I said to you in the previous episode, the present moment, the present moment before you attach the meaning to it. So it's always the ball's in our court in order to apply meaning to something. So the more balanced you can come at something, the more you can take a wider view of it and know that it's okay, it's all good, it's happening for you, not to you, da-da-da-da-da. Those kind of things help me stay on track with how I feel, with where I'm going, knowing that it's all part of a necessary kind of step in my evolution.
Yeah. And there's a very cool practical tool that you can use for something like that, which is you have a response to an event, be positive, negative, or neutral, and then you become aware of that and you consciously write out different scenarios and different perspectives that you attach to the event, from catastrophizing it, this is the worst possible event, even worse than my reaction because of this, and that, then moving yourself up to a neutral perspective of why this is neutral, and then taking it from neutral to positive or super positive of why this is the greatest thing that could have happened because of this, and that. So you train yourself to have a perspective on the event rather than just having the direct reaction, which puts you in this hamster wheel. Something happens to you and like you just jump on it. That trains you to just have a spectrum of perspectives. And the more you do that, the more you can kind of consciously assign the meaning to the event that you wish to attach.
Yeah, that reminds me of something that I listened to last night in the Conversations from God book, where he was talking about a practical tool for when he's, I'm stuck in traffic. So then he was like, what would I feel like if I wasn't stuck in traffic? And then he's still stuck in traffic, but at least, he's reframed it in that moment.
That's interesting. So this is the other way around. He's telling you to feel a certain thing that is not necessarily what you feel with the event, versus the other thing is now you're using your rational brain to just think through it and give it different perspectives. Actually pretty cool. That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. So there's two ways to do that then.
Yep. Yeah. We could do both probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good to kind of try and see things from that wider sphere.
I think that's everything, man. Isn't everything in life that's happening a matter of your value judgment?
Your placing of meaning onto it.
Yeah.
Your assessment of.
That's it.
Yeah.
The thing is happening. It happened. Something happened. That thing that happened, it doesn't have an inherent meaning. It's what do you attach to it?
Mm-hmm. It's not defining you as the person.
Right.
It's just a happening throughout.
Yeah. And it seems to be like, again, the meaning that we attach to it is to what extent it serves or hinders our progression towards a desired goal.
Mm. Yeah.
But how it actually stands in relationship to your desired goal can be a matter of framing.
It's funny as well, sometimes when you talk to specific people, they can say one thing to you, and then you all of a sudden are just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's because there's 8 billion different perspectives.
Yeah. You already got the one.
Well, yeah, of course it had to happen, man. Of course it had to happen. Because of this, and that. If it didn't happen now, what would have happened later?
Yeah.
That allows you to fix your situation because of this, and that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That happened with a friend of mine recently. He was on an H-1B visa, work visa, and he got fired by the company. But he was on this H-1B visa for, I think, 8 years. And he's been trying to get his status fixed and get his green card for the longest time. But he's from India, so it's very difficult for him to get his permanent residency. So he's just been extending his work visa all the time. And when he got fired, essentially he had to leave the country. You have a 60-day grace period to leave the country. And so it's a difficult situation because, dude, there's layers of difficulty. If you don't know if you can stay in a country and continue your life here, when your girlfriend is here, your house is here, your friends are here, your hobbies are here, that's a very existential issue.
Mm.
That's even, relatively speaking, more difficult than just breaking up with a partner or just losing a job. This is you losing your job. You also
feels like our
lose
world's
your status.
crumbled, yeah.
Yeah, and you might lose your relationship because of that too. So he was obviously it was a difficult time, but at the same time, he's been trying to get his status fixed for 8 years. How on earth would he have his status fixed if he continues to stay on this H-1B visa over and over and over and over again? This, one way or the other, was necessary for him to somehow either leave the country and fix his status otherwise, find a different company that somehow sponsors him, possibly get married to his girlfriend, who he's been together with for some time. So in any case, that event in itself is going to be an event that allows him to move to his desired end state. It's just that this event, when it's right in front of you, is causing so much chaos that you can't see the entire forest anymore. You just see a bunch of branches in front of you and don't know how to navigate through it, right? But ultimately, it's a piece of a puzzle that's necessary for him. So that's just a different perspective to, oh my God, I'm losing all my status. I have to go back. My life's falling apart. No, bro, you wanted to have the green card. This is it. This is God's way of giving you the green card. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah. What's the thing you talk about with the branches? Falling down or something like that?
It's just you're so close to the problem that all you're seeing is problems. There's the problem, and then you have the branches, which are the different problems that problem brings with it. And you're just like, how am I solving this? How am I solving this? Your rational mind kicks in. How am I solving this? How am I doing this? Not realizing that, dude, this is here for the good of you. This event happened in order for you to get where you want to go. You just don't see it. Happens so many times with breakups too. Go through a breakup.
No, I feel like it's the end of the
Why
world.
did this happen?
It's like,
this
yeah.
and that, and then you move on and you realize, dude, this was a way for me to get where I was supposed to go. Now looking back at it, might have been the best thing that ever happened. For me, it was. 100% it was. But when you're in front of it, you can't see it because your rational mind is there thinking, oh my goodness, And then you have these emotions of pain, sadness, loss. Difficult. Your emotional system is strong. It overrides everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time you realize that that's the case. So it's really just keep pulling away from it, man. Shift the perspective. Constantly, constantly. Shift it. You know, like you say, talk to other people, get different perspectives.
Yeah.
Especially when you're so close to the problem, when it's so recent and present.
Good advice, brother boy. Good talk.
Good talk, as always.
Appreciate you.
Always, bro. Appreciate you too.
I'm out.
I have a little bit left.
Time for a poppy.
Yeah, I'm thirsty, man.